Yeah, the AI tells you now. Um, Jesus, when was the last time you were on this?
We did
It's like
oh my
right when the
god.
pandemic started.
Oh, you mean the actual? We talked about Bobo Kumite.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The last
Yeah,
time you were on the
right
podcast.
when I was it was when the pandemic started, and I was doing all my work for my kitchen table on a wooden wooden chair, which is killing my back and my butt.
Mm.
That sucked.
Yeah, well,
Come a long way from there.
oh yeah, definitely. Like in the time intervening time, uh, we've respectively moved 3 times, or into drastically different environments.
Yeah.
Um, there's been a journey. But I'd say one I'm glad that has actually occurred to a degree. Not everything that's happened in intervening time, but definitely having another person to kind of soundboard on or soundboard with in terms of karate has been really, really who isn't like retired from it, kind of.
Mm. Yeah.
So I guess we should get started proper though. Hi everyone, welcome to Karate Without Belts. I'm gonna skip the normal thing I do. Joining, this is our first. Even though alcohol is nothing new to the podcast, it's new to this podcaster who was currently imbibing. So this is the first time no one's been sober on the podcast. So cheers, cheers to classics,
Years. Yeah. It's to bourbon.
to bourbon, to
To,
bourbon.
to bourbon. To Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey.
Is so. I guess we can kind of let the yeah it is. So
It
to
is.
let the
It's
listeners
Kentucky straight
know,
bourbon.
yeah. So the other week I was Raul was like, "We're gonna do." I forget whose idea it was, yours or mine. It
I
was
don't
like,
know. I think I was drinking at the time anyway, so it's probably
well, and
mine.
this is the funny thing is when you were on here last too, you were drinking, so it was like you've never not been on the on the podcast
That's
sober.
true. I was drinking. Yes, I think I was drinking Angel's Envy or something like that. Yeah, yeah, that's me. I got a problem.
We go back, just admitting it, just admitting it
Yeah,
now. We've got a problem.
I'm not a quitter.
That's the spirit. But last week, Raul got on cam on cam with me, and then walked me through a liquor store in Japan, trying to
Yes.
find the appropriate whiskey for this podcast. Um, it was a fun adventure, and I get a lot of interesting looks from the people around me. Being the only like white dude in there who's just and just like having somebody screaming out English from my phone.
Well, I got you a good one though, didn't I?
Yes, yes, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I'm doing Buffalo Trace. This is the first
Hmm.
time I've ever gone down this road. I tested it out last week. It's quite smooth.
Now, see, the funny thing about that particular bottle is I avoided that like the plague when I first started drinking whiskey because I thought the label made it look cheap. And then
Buffalo.
I kept hearing reviews that this was just really good stuff. Just get past the label. And one day I said, all right, fine, $20. I mean, this is going to be garbage whiskey. And I poured a glass. And I was like, oh my goodness, where has this been all my life? So when we were talking and looking for the different brands, and you said, what about this Buffalo thing? I was like, buy that
Mm.
because that is some good stuff.
Indeed, it goes down smooth. I'm not like a frequent whiskey drinker.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm more of a cheap red wine and or like a dark beer man myself.
Mm-hmm.
So learned that from your one of your mentors. Just remember him saying one time, "It's like Dork beer. Just get me some Dork beer and we'll be good." Um,
Which one
and
was
I'm like,
that?
"Okay, yeah, I'll definitely go for that." And then from then on, it's always been like, "Okay, we'll go with dark beer."
I usually drink dark beer myself. But who said that?
Mr. Giraldi.
Oh,
So I
okay,
remember
yeah.
him being like very, very much like I don't want to name drop, but it's like yeah, I remember him one time and people were like just around, oh, Mr. Giraldi, Mr. Giraldi. What beer would you just dark anything dark be good? And I was just like for me, especially we were around a lot of people who were kind of nice Midwestern folk, and then
Mhm.
just us northeastern kind of rude people are always just like this, yeah, go do that.
Mm.
Um, I don't know. I described our Texan friends might not like this, but I described to somebody in English class once the difference between like the directness of Northeast and like Southwest would be more like Northeast would be like, hey, go do this thing, and Southwest would be more like, hey, you see that money in your wallet? It's gonna buy me that thing. You can start by walking down the street right now.
It's
Um,
true. There's a lot more courtesy down south.
despite the fact it's just as menacing.
Mm.
Anyway, sir, how are you this fine evening?
I am doing all right. I got my training in,
Hmm.
even though I worked about 11 hours today. I've been uh, since I moved down south from New York uh, in April, and then finally moved into my house in August, and set up my own personal dojo in my garage, which is something I've always wanted to do. I guess since I started martial arts, is have somewhere I can train by myself. Because when I first started training, um, I would practice in my backyard. I would practice at Bally's gym. When Bally's was a thing,
Hmm.
in the aerobics room. I never had my own spot that I can do whenever I wanted. So when I told my wife we're going to buy a house when we have enough money, the garage is mine and it's a dojo. That's it. So
Enough said.
I was able to set it up and put it together probably about September-ish, I think, is when it kind of went live. I got the mats, I got the heavy bags hung, and I've just been going to town on it between 3 and 5 days a week.
And it's a really good setup. If anybody's not seen it, go to trying to
Is
remember
it
it was
Okinawan
Okinawan
Toad?
Todekon.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um.
and on Facebook.
Yes. On the old man social media
Oh yeah, the old
platform.
man. Yeah, well, I
social
am
media.
old. I'm 43. You know,
Well,
I'm
it's
getting it.
also like, oh, it's funny. Our ages are actually inversed. Um.
Oh, we are.
Yeah. I'm still not revealing my actual age on the podcast, but
I got you by a decade.
just about.
Yeah,
But what is it? Yeah, it is quality, like not only in terms of like what you've set up, but also quality of what you're showing. It was interesting. I don't know if you want me to reveal this here or not.
no, go ahead. I mean, that's fine.
You said this to me, and I thought it was interesting that you're talking about like people like looking at your stuff and looking at the videos you put up, and then looking at like the count of people who like end up following you and liking whatever is on there and versus not. And it was, you do a lot of like very straightforward bag work, straightforward like line work, stuff like that. And anytime you like post that, it's really normally quality. You have a really good video that you throw up about like just like there's no really such thing as the check, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be as practical as possible because I'm coming from I guess we could say a full contact background where I've been punched in the face quite a few times,
Mm.
and I'm trying to I what works and what doesn't work for me because I'm also not a large person either. I'm like 5'4", 155 pounds. So it's like, what would work for a 6'1" or 6 foot person who's 180, 200 pounds doesn't work for me. So I got to be a little more finesse and a little more active than some of the bigger guys. So I try to be a little more practical.
Well, and that just like to the degree of like not being practical. I think most
Yeah.
people like attempt to be practical even when they're supposedly trying to be traditional.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you pointing out to me is like you throw up a lot of stuff that's just straight up you training, straight up you doing bag work, demonstrating ideas. But then it comes to like you get maybe one or two likes or one or two people who are like, yeah, um, and you interestingly will attack old men on Facebook who come after you in
Hey, you come at me, I come at you. It's okay.
yeah, echoing another sentiment we talked about earlier. But then it's like you do a kata, and then like it's like 55 people are like, "Yeah, that's the kata, man." And I thought that's a very interesting. And then what did you say? It was like people are cheering on the blueprint; they're not cheering on the result.
Yeah, see that was something that kind of gets me a little bit. So I'll show like a kata movement and then I'll show an entire training regimen on bags and footwork and stuff like that, all on that particular concept in the kata, right? Because it's a blueprint. Kata is our blueprint. It may be the soul of karate, but it's also the basics. You want to get better and be more like martial in what you're doing and being bringing out the applications and bringing out something that does life protection. You're not going to get that from just doing kata. You got to take the kata and the concepts and apply it more into like a really strong training regimen. And I'll do a kata and I'll get 100 likes. And I'm like, okay. And then I'll take a piece of that kata and show how I train around that particular piece. And I'll get like 5, 10, 15 likes. Sometimes they won't. I'll post it on a particular forum, and they'll deny it.
Oh wait, so they won't even let it on there?
They won't even let it on there. And I asked them why. I was like, listen, I see you guys doing all this stuff. I'm doing that too, and then I show a little bit different, and that's not getting put on. Well, we have a bunch of guys that look at this stuff, and if we have more agrees than disagrees, we'll put it up. And that got all the disagrees. And that was it. Okay.
That makes little sense to me. Where it's like even people like disagree with you, even if you have like conversation.
The forum's called Practical Karate, and I'm like,
all right, I guess we're calling them out here. That's all right.
Wow.
We're not only. Wow, oh, you're doing the Owen Wilson. Wow. That looks real
damage.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing where it's like, that's the key word you said there was regimen, right? Actual training regimen, not just doing kata, not just doing push-ups, not just doing the basic stuff people do, but then also not just like one and done back and forth. This is the move in the kata, and then doing it back and forth a couple times with a partner, and then calling it a night. There's a regimen around the breakdown, around the blueprint that you need to do in order to make that bridge work, which is the connective tissue I don't think a lot of people get. Especially when they're not doing full contact sparring, or they're not even doing sparring, period.
Yeah. They're doing 2-person drills, but I mean that's again another level of the basics that like a basic understanding of things, but you got to make it your own at a certain point in your training. And how do you do that? And you got to play with it a little bit. And if you don't play with it and see what kind of works for you and what doesn't work, or some sort of modifications to that particular theory or technique based on your body type, then you're not really gaining any real. Like, again, we go back to life protection skills. It's like, people do karate for a whole number of reasons. But the reason why I did martial arts was to protect my life and to be more efficient in fighting. So when I look at things, I look at things from that particular perspective. Is this making me a better fighter? Is this making me more efficient? Can I not get punched in the face as many times as I've done before? You know what I mean? So it's like, if that's not achieving that goal, I'm not going to pay too much attention or allow that to come into my training regimen. It's like, that's just how I look at things. So if you're doing martial arts because you want to be some sort of historical society and accumulate kata, and because you feel that the kata is going out of style because people aren't doing this kata anymore, that's perfectly fine. I'd be perfectly okay with doing 1 or 2 kata for my entire life, but dedicating my entire life to understanding why I'm doing this kata and developing a whole training aspect to it and making myself a better fighter.
Well, and that's how you actually preserve it. Rather than, because I think that this is where I've seen a lot of the time, and because this is nobody's sober here, we're just going to keep on rolling on this topic.
Keep rolling, let's do it.
Because you probably said it on here a million different ways, but probably all the other karate podcasters doing the same thing. But the thing is, like, when you have people who say, "There's this kata, not many people are doing it, not many people are practicing it anymore. Oh no, we need to get more people practicing it." I've seen this happen where people, like, at a seminar will be like, "We're all gonna learn it and make sure we have it as our thing." year or two later, it's got one or two of those guys who still does it. 3 or 4 years after that, you might have the one other person who does it, but like they become the person who like does it, and that's it.
Right.
But then all they know how to do is just like, oh, I know the form. But like then they don't have a training regimen around it. They don't have anything behind it. There's nothing like there for them to grasp onto. And so that's where I feel like, especially with what you're doing and showing that there's a training regimen around like the bunkai you're breaking down, then there's actually an art there.
Yeah.
Rather than just, oh, there's a kata. The kata's the fighting system. I don't know what that means. And a lot of people don't because they'll just say, okay, I did the kata. It's a fighting system.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it like that, if you're the kata or the series of kata, like all the nahachi together is a complete fighting system. What do you do with that now? You know the kata. What are you doing with it? Are you doing your nahachi kicks on the heavy bag now? Are you setting up your feints? Are you using your pivots that are found in the nahachi katas that are hidden in your sparring? There's a
Are
whole
you
bunch of
doing
stuff.
gamaku? Do the
Yeah.
gamaku. Why aren't you doing gamaku? Do gamaku more.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff in there, the theories, the principles. Are you grabbing, and are you putting something on the bag, or are you working with your partners and grabbing and tying up? Because a lot of the movements in Naihachi are really close quarters combat stuff. There's throws in there too. I mean, so are you incorporating that? Are you working on that on a consistent basis? And then are you taking that to the next levels? Okay, I'm now going to spar and different levels of sparring. And does this work for me? Everything that I've been training around does this translate to somebody who doesn't want to get hit? I don't know. That's something you kind of have to do, because when you actually get into a fight, the other person doesn't want to get hit and he wants to hit you too. So it's like you got to deal with both of those things.
And on that note, it's like this is where this stuff with the Karate Kid and Cobra Kai and all this stuff like just drives me up a wall because it's like there's actual people who do karate and there's actual people who like understand like okay I'm gonna back up on this. There's traditional people who do karate who act like the people who do what you're doing, who are kind of like less connected to the kata but still like doing the hard line work, doing like the hard like making sure the feints and their hands are up and they know how to protect themselves.
Yep.
Kind of pretend like that stuff won't work. My stuff will work because it's traditional, because we have the source kata and whatnot. Just because you have the kata doesn't mean you're going to be able to kind of enact that just on the scene. But I think it kind of goes back to where they're initially taught from, and then so people who have all the like good regimen down, but don't really have like more than just kind of the few basic things, are kind of missing out on that. Where as opposed to, but it's like that's at least your basic level, as opposed to the traditional guys who have all this like just stuff in a corner that they pull out and put back in a corner. But it's not like they don't really.
It's not part of the routine.
Yeah.
But it's not something they're doing every day,
Yeah.
which is something we need to do. I think. I mean, when I was first coming up through the ranks, I came across a book. I think it was Bill Berger. Yeah, I got all my books here. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Yeah, Bill Berger.
Bill Burger.
Yeah, let me grab it.
Like burger.
Like Burgar.
Oh, Burger.
Burger. I don't know. I'm a bad person. So 5 years, one.
Oh wait, I know this guy. He's actually commented on our. He actually. Friend of a friend also commented on one of our podcasts. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I read that. I guess I was maybe a brown belt, and it kind of clicked because he took that one kata and he actually created an entire training routine from all the concepts in the kata he was studying. So I was like, that makes sense. So it's like you learn one kata. I mean, even in our guiding principles, it says it takes 3 years to really understand a kata, and then one master studied one kata for like 10 years. So it's like if you train one thing and you learn all the concepts that are hidden or in there, and you create an entire routine to make sure that you're constantly studying and applying that to either the solo form or solo exercises, and then with partner drills in a more realistic manner. Wow, that's crazy. That's what it should have been.
Well, and I think it's one of those ideas where I feel like if you kind of roll back on it, was there depending upon who was doing it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I feel like if you roll back 100 years, people really probably weren't doing Bogu Kumite. Like they weren't doing
Yeah.
like full contact fighting, mainly
Well,
because like that would have probably seen as really dangerous.
well, yeah, they weren't wearing protective gear. They were fighting on the side though. I mean, they
Well, yeah,
were.
but it's like independent. Like Jared brought this up, buddy of mine, year back or so. Was like if you think about how medicine works and like
Mhm.
people who get broken bones and stuff, how hard they're going at a certain point may have been different in different, literally different in different eras.
Okay.
Or like how weak and strong somebody was, like based on nutrition and like how people were able, like how much, like in some places like Okinawa, like you didn't have, maybe the rich people were well fed and maybe the poor people weren't all that
Yeah.
well fed. Who was doing martial arts and where? How many people apparently? What is it? I heard this one thing where it was like up until a certain point, up until like very modern times, most armies who were marching did not carry water; they carried alcohol because that was safer to drink than most water sources.
Wow, I didn't know that.
It's just something I heard kind of secondhand, but it's like
How would that work though? Because your water just the alcohol displaces the water and you dehydrate the entire group.
so all these guys are like running in
They're
battle.
just dropping dead out in the middle of the heat.
Man, we lost most of our men just
Just
very
drinking
fat. They
outside.
were dehydrated. That's why modern sports are. This is why we should just decide wars in terms of like the conflicts in terms of like baseball or whatever, or like soccer, because you just do a lot better off that way, rather than anything we've got going now.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess to bring it to something you'd said to me, if we roll back to when we originally trained, originally started, and I
Yeah.
think we're kind of in that seat now to kind of decide that. You know, looking back on how we started and how we were originally taught versus kind of like what we know now. I guess what can we change? What shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't change? I guess we can kind of go around that direction.
Yeah. I mean, I think the sucky thing about moving down here is I don't have a student base anymore. So when I was up in New York, I was cultivating a small group, and the group I was working with, I was doing things with them I wish was done with me when I first came through. And I guess what I did was I would work one day with the kata and the two-person drills. The next day, it was mandatory fighting stuff, either hitting the bag, uh, one-on-one drills with like focus mitts, doing two-person drills like checking, side steps, footwork. So, and then as we progressed through their ranks, as they got their yellow belt, their orange belt, their blue belt, they could see the relationship between the fighting concepts I was teaching them on fight day and the kata, and they can connect the dots as to why we're doing things. Whereas I guess when I first came up, it was kata, two-person drills, you know, and that was what we did up and through yellow belt. And then after you got your yellow belt, you started working a little bit into Bogu Kumite type stuff. And then eventually, by the time you hit blue belts, I mean, you were kind of free sparring at that point. But I think if you could start them off right at the get go, hey, we're doing sidestep drills, and then eventually where this came from the kata, um, it might connect the dots a little bit earlier, and they might solidify, their training and their production. And I've noticed uh, from working with that group, because it took me a while to figure all these things out and kind of put it in a way that would translate into something that would actually be meaningful. This is like a lot of success and failure rate with these things. And I was working on it for quite a few years. Uh, I was starting out with a Krav Maga school, and they brought me in just to make these guys, their techniques a little better because it was a little sloppy. So I would work with the kumite stuff with them, and then after hours I would do my kata stuff, and then they would some guys would stick around. So I was able to work with these guys, on the side, like with the kata stuff and how I was coming up with things. And then when I started getting dedicated students, I was figuring things out. Uh, I was able to take a couple of students who wanted to do it from start to finish. Geo, Kevin, and then one of the guys who I was working with from the crowd. You could see how quickly they progressed from a somebody who didn't know any martial arts to somebody who could actually be really productive in a full contact environment within about 3 to 6 months. They were going full contact and pretty proficient at it. I posted a video of Steve and Gio. Gio's like first or second official Bogu Kumite fight, and Steve's first, but Steve was working with me for like a year and a half, 2 years. And they would say, like, Gio was a yellow belt at the time, and Steve I would consider maybe a blue or a green belt. But they said that the yellow belt didn't move like a yellow belt. He moved really efficiently. And I said, yeah, it's because the way we kind of constructed things was, you did kata and kumite kind of next to each other at the same time, and it made a lot more sense a lot sooner.
Yeah, and I think I mean, it's very interesting because it makes me feel like I missed out on an opportunity, but I was like very much not in a place to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because that reminds me, to almost parallel that. So when I first came up, I came up like kind of with kind of people who were saying they were around what we do now, but
Mm-hmm.
really had departed it in
Right.
reality. Not even like saying they were like one thing and actually another. They were actually like just not doing any form of like Oyata Kempo or any of the kind of like degradations or offshoots or whatever. They were just kind of off doing their own thing, which is
Right.
basically like sport karate. But
Mm-hmm.
what was interesting when I started, I was 13, and they started us. So I was like they put me in the kids class, which I did not fit that class because I was too. No, I was like this like homunculus of a child,
Mm-hmm.
like who like I rode my bike everywhere, but like I was like very unfit, and then so I just like was in this class with like a bunch of like also elementary school students. So it was like, yeah, this like middle schooler in this class was kind of like, kind of stood out. Like when you're a kid, some people grow up faster than others. But I was like, white belt, whatever the progression was, but around where it was like the second, third belt or whatever, they were like, all right, get sparring gear. And I was like, that's $100 of like plastic crap. Um, because it was just like kid, like kind of like punchy sparring gear. But I remember it must have been, it started in January. It must have been fall where I finally entered that class. And I just remembered like, but it was like, you think this way, you're a 13-year-old, like going from like just doing like little like kiddie forms and whatnot to like, and like punching a bag or like hitting a bag or like however he knows how to like doing like sparring and stuff like that. Even in that, like, don't kick the, don't punch the face, only hit the body. Like only, you're a kid, you can't really control like the like contact or whatever.
Right.
Um, but like at least that was teaching you to move. At least that was teaching you kind of like how to move around a bit. I kind of forget how they didn't really do a great job of it. That is like the moment I like it was this weird progression in the school because then the owner of the school was just like, "Hey, you, yeah, you're too big for the kids class. Go to the adults class." So there was no really intermediary class for like teens.
No, there never is. Like
Yeah,
I taught commercially for quite a while, and once they hit like the 12 to 15 age range, it's like you can't put them with adults because they're not built for adult stuff, but they definitely can't hang out with the kids anymore.
yeah, and so like I don't know, this guy who I don't know was kind of doing more yoga than he was doing karate at the time. Very checked out from the actual art of it. It was just like finally like actually like his eyes opened. It's like, oh shit, that kid's too big for this class. Um, I don't think I hurt anybody, but I think it was probably not a good fit. So they like put me in like the adults class, which was just this range from like 15 to 75.
Yeah,
These
it's
like
just
grown ass men, and I was like 14 when I did it. So I think it was basically big enough, but like like
yeah,
not.
the muscle tone isn't there, the coordination's not there, the mindset's not there. Yeah, I know.
But I remember when it did actually kick in. It wasn't actually until it was like 2 years later until like everything like clicked with like that with the kind of like nerve connection and stuff like that.
Yeah,
'Cause,
usually around 16, 17, you guys are ready to rock.
yeah. So it was like before then, I was just getting my ass kicked with this like shitty version of sparring. But at least we were doing it,
Yeah.
and then they just cut it. They were just we're done. We're not doing sparring in the adults class anymore.
What?
Except and this is the interesting bit. In the like they would have this evening class and they would have this afternoon class, and it was like I'm not revealing anything. This is stuff that happened like 20 years ago. One of them wants to come after me. Go right ahead. Go after a podcast now. What a lot of people listen to. That's kind of to hedge my bets. But the adult. But this is interesting. The afternoon class, run by completely different people, was like, "What do you mean we're not sparring? Bring your sparring gear next time, kid." I was like, "Okay." 6'7" guy, these like kind of like older, rougher dudes, and then these old ladies who had no compunction of hitting a kid, um, were just sparring. But this was the same school that had basically said in this night class, no more sparring. And so it was like learning how to spar and actually how to like fight and stuff after having like 6 months of not doing it.
Yeah.
And I got my black belt, and they were like, "Yep, no, we're not fighting anymore. No more fighting."
Sadness.
So it was like it's almost the inverse of what you're saying, where it's like kind of learned it in not in tandem, but like at least at that point, at that time, that was probably the best way to merge it.
Yeah.
If I was to go back now, it'd be much different. I think you're on the right path in terms of being able to keep the two not separate, but in like put them together where they're not just doing static stand horse stance single block.
Right. I mean, there is a time and place for that. I mean, obviously. I mean, even when I warm up today, I mean, I did Pasai, Kusanku, and Nisei Shi, as far because this is my kata week, and there's a time and place for that, no doubt. I mean, warms up the muscles you ingrain those particular movements in your muscle memory, but you also need to know how to apply it too in a chaos environment. Because honestly, when you're really fighting somebody, it's chaos. It's
Yeah.
chaos. It's adrenaline. People, when they do like the demonstrations, you're hitting somebody who's fairly relaxed and not adrenalized, and it hurts them more if you hit them in certain spots. But when that person's adrenalized and raring to go, all those pain receptors are dampened a little bit, and you're not going to get the desired effect sometimes. So
Yeah, and then it's like this is where you get where demo karate becomes karate. I
yeah, I
feel
know.
like whereas this demo karate is that's the karate you do because you're just setting up for somebody to punch you and then you do the thing and then that guy goes down.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, doesn't isn't how actual situations happen though.
But yeah, absolutely, every day.
Yeah. So I
You know,
feel
a
like
person leaves that hand out for like 6 or 7 minutes, so you can do like 17 different moves on them. It always
mm,
works. They never retract the hand after they throw it, ever.
they're never throw 1 and 2 punches. That
No,
never
they
happens.
just one
That
punch at a time, and one guy comes at you one at a time. They don't go converge on you at once and throw you on the ground.
I think it was my buddy James who was like, "Yeah, we do the like 3-man version of Pignon or whatever, where it's like you go to one side, you attack one guy, go to one side, you attack the other, you come to the
Oh
guy behind
yeah,
you, go to the guy in front of you." But
yeah,
I think that was purely for like facial demonstration purposes, not meant to be actually taken seriously in terms of like this is when you'd use this. But it's again a matter of like when demonstration karate becomes real karate because then people see that and then that's the only thing they got to work with. They don't want to mix and match and try and make it other shit work.
yeah. It's weird. I mean, I get that now because it came out that at my new job that I'm the karate guy. I kind of made the announcement because I'm trying to get students at this point.
Aren't
But
you posting flyers? Aren't you
I
walking around your neighborhood handing out badly printed flyers to people?
eventually I might have to. I mean, I opened the garage door and started hitting the bags and started doing all my stuff. And I actually got some compliments. Some guy was like, "Hey, you do that karate stuff?" Huh? I'm like, sometimes. He's like, "How long you been doing it?" "A little bit. I'm humble. I mean, honestly, I don't think my karate is as good as people think it is. I mean, I'm always my worst critic. So I don't go, yeah, I'm number one karate. But I go, I've been doing it for a little bit. But he goes, wow, you look pretty good. I'm like, yeah, if you want to come on by, I mean, come on by. We can work something out. Um, but eventually I'm gonna try to, be a little more aggressive. I think I'm trying to figure out the laws around here first.
Oh, in terms of
And
like you can have a business on your property and shit like that,
yeah,
and
I mean,
insurance.
insurance and I have to operate under a homeowners association, so I want to make sure I'm not breaking any rules with that either. So
That's like the mafia right there.
well, luckily it hasn't been formed yet, so I'm going to try to get my wife on the board, so I can't get in trouble. But I mean,
As one of your teachers has always said, and he's completely right when he said, "Get in with the wives. You get in with the wives, everything's good."
everything's good.
Yeah, I think. I mean, what's interesting here is that like we very, very, very rarely see commercial schools. Like they exist, they're here, but like the very rarely is anyone like trying to like open up like a strip mall school or something like that.
Yeah, over in Japan.
Yeah, it's very more like they've got a local community center and that's where they work out of.
Here in South Carolina is mall karate as far as the eye can see.
No correct. Wait,
Mall, like
all
yeah,
karate.
like the American Taekwondo Academy, ATA. Is that what it stands for? So they
ATA.
call it karate, and there's ATA. It's like, oh, it's Taekwondo. Um, there's a lot of commercialized type stuff around here.
Hmm.
In New York, there was actually a really strong um, classical Okinawan karate um, section to choose from,
Yeah.
either from our group or other groups out there. I mean, like Shorin and stuff like that. It was a good strong base at least in Long Island, New York. Down south, it's either commercialized karate or MMA. There is no bridge in between.
There's people down there, but it's like they're not high. It's not like
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
there's groups and stuff. There's like little Okinawa groups.
there's the Ryukyu Kempo and Ryute groups in South Carolina for sure. But as far as like, in Long Island, I guess because maybe I'm used because Long Island's just like 7 million people on Long Island, and there's 5 million people in South Carolina.
It's a
So
Long Island.
it's Long Island, so like you can get anything on Long Island. So it's like it was pretty interesting to see how many traditional and really hardcore like classical stuff you can get into. You can get into modern arnis, you can get into MMA, you can get into really hardcore karate, or you can find that mole stuff too. Whereas in South Carolina, from what I can tell, for the most part, mall karate, MMA, and then that classical Okinawan karate is kind of few and far between. I mean, there are guys out there, and obviously Gary Scholl
Yeah.
in our system. I'm going to try to meet out with him in March. I know he's doing some sort of seminar,
Yeah.
so I'm going to try to get out there, me and him talk, here and there, making contact and trying to keep this classical stuff going. But as far as my neighborhood,
Yeah. It,
nah,
it, it,
man.
it's difficult. And there's like, how do you attract people? Like, how would you start with people who only see, this is a conversation I had with people the other day where it's like, all right, you want a bunch of people to come in and like see karate. Then you want them to choose between like different karate stuff. And you want to do this from like start. How do you
Yeah.
really differentiate like mall karate and MMA? And like almost it's like you what we do has bears the same aesthetic as mall karate, do at least on a facial level. But
A
then
little
like
bit.
how you train it would like probably at least on the aesthetic look like the MMA stuff. So
Yeah, see, I guess I get that. I get that kind of. That's probably why I get some of my videos kind of like banned on certain forums, is because I'm applying it in some sort of modern aspect.
yeah,
I'm the maverick of my own system too. I like it. A lot of my my instructors are like, Raul does things a little differently. But but I'm trying to apply it the way I would want it to be taught to me, because I'm looking at it from a very martial aspect. I want to be a better fighter. So how do I be a better fighter? Back in the day, the Okinawans, tried to do things the best they could and be better fighters based on what they had available. Now, what we have available, we have equipment, we have bags, we have YouTube, we have social
of
media.
course we have social media.
We can interact with one another and take
We have
different.
whiskey, we have
We have
birds,
wisdom.
we have trees. We'll bless them all.
We'll do it all, but we can transmit different ways we train with one another, because Okinawans kind of like grabbed stuff that they liked and added it to their stuff. What am I doing differently than that? I'm not. I'm taking what's modern, what's available to me, and making it my own, and applying it to a classical martial art, in my opinion. I mean, I could be way off base and people can say I'm just doing garbage shit. That's fine. But I think the way I train and the way I transmit my information is efficient and gets people fighting faster, in my opinion. And I've seen it,
Yeah.
I've seen it happen from 120-pound soaking wet kid to go against a guy who's like 160, 170 pounds and hold his own within 6 months. That's pretty impressive. Not on my end, but on his end too, because he put in the work. So it's
Well,
like,
definitely, and like, and there's the thing that too, where it's like everyone forgets that when they ever want to bring up something traditional, they always forget that there's also the particular. It is never there's no one cookie cutter traditional system, and because there's no one cookie cutter particular teacher. You have good teachers, you have bad teachers, and this is why you see a lot of people who are able to like hold their own and stuff because they had generally had good teachers. It didn't matter what they did. Like
yeah.
you have that whole like Motobu fight nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Would like no one's calling it nonsense, but like the Motobu fight that is like supposedly the karate beat the boxer, right? There
Oh
was
yeah,
like
when he killed that
yeah,
Russian.
or yeah, and then like whatever, and then there's apparently comes the Motobu Dundee people come out and they're just like no then his older brother beat him in a fight afterwards.
Yeah, the Choyu fight. Yeah,
Yeah, and then it's like okay, then what actually happened,
I know.
And
Yeah,
then it's like
there's a lot
whose
that.
propaganda is winning here? But in that regard, it's like to your point where it's like you've got someone who can do that. It's not because of any particular style; it's because of how they trained, and it's not because one's more traditional or more modern. It's just the teacher saw a way of synthesizing what they saw and imparted it to their student, and then the student trained on that.
Yeah, and the students got to put the work in too. So it's not like I'm saying I found the magic bullet, and if you do the way I do it, you're going to get better faster. It's also, the student has to have some sort of athletic ability. The student has to have some sort of dedication. The student has to have and a natural interest in what he wants to do or she wants to do. So, it goes there too. So I was lucky enough, you know, to find somebody or people who are interested enough and had enough ability to understand what I was trying to teach them, apply it in a consistent basis, and make it their own. And now when I left, um, I had some of my students call me up and say, "Hey, I'm going to another school." And I said, "Well, you have my blessing. I mean, obviously, I'm not your teacher anymore, and I wish I was because I really had a really good time with you. But just take what I've given you, apply it, but also learn what they're teaching you, and empty your cup a little bit, and just do your best." And then they call me back like 3, 4, 6 months later, and go, I really didn't know how great I had it with you until I went to another school, and I'm excelling so well at the school because of the things you've done with me. And I said, yeah, yes, I want to take some sort of credit with it, but the other credit is you put in the work too. You busted your ass with me. You did a really good job, and I was really proud of you. And so you also were like probably 80% of the progress. So take a lot of the love on your end too, because you were a really good student, and just keep doing what you're doing, and just go take it and go with it.
And which is like not many, unfortunately, not many teachers have that mindset. They don't have that realization. Like
Yeah,
it's not going to be for you. Get the time. I was thinking about this earlier. You get the time you get with people. You get the people you get. You don't get the people you necessarily want. But I mean,
yeah,
if you have that kind of lucky sweet spot with people, um, enjoy that while you've got it.
yeah.
Have
You really should. You should enjoy it because you don't get it very often. When I taught commercially, there was like one or two students who really enjoyed showing up, and everybody else was just like, they were there because their parents made them be there, or they were there because they wanted to be there to learn a specific thing,
yeah.
but they weren't there to learn to be a fighter. And so, from my mindset, if you're not learning to be a fighter, maybe don't attend my classes.
Well, yeah, and like there's the thing where it's like if you're not, I always want to temper this because I also work with people who are less aggressive. But at the same time, like we all understand, like everyone to a degree understands, you need to have that practicality, or it's nothing. Um,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of people who are just going to make a lot of excuses around that for like not being more practical or only
Mhm.
kind of winging it a little, or like fluffing it a little, which is where I think everyone backs up to got it. Everyone backs up to two-man drill. Everyone backs up to this because it's
Yeah.
safe, it's easy, it's
It is safe, and it's again, it's base level stuff. But I also want to, I guess, really impart it, unless any instructors are kind of listening to this, you can't take yourself too seriously either. I think that's something that I was at least able to at least stay humble. And if you're still have the ability to kind of get in the ring and fight with your students, which is what you should, eventually they're going to get kind of good. And my guys are getting pretty damn good. And they were kind of giving it to me at one point. Like they popped me a few times where I was like, I better game myself up a little bit and kind of, get myself, a little faster, or get my head moving a little bit better. Because if I keep doing what I'm doing, they're going to rock me. And if you keep yourself in the game and keep yourself getting humbled, I think you're not going to take yourself as seriously as you think, and not like get I guess that big like instructor head.
yeah.
You, I hate that. Like they can do no wrong. I'm a human being. I suck at something every day. I mean, when I look at myself on video, can I video myself very often, and I go, I mean, I'll post this, but I got to work more on that because that's not as good as I wanted it to be in my head. In my head, I thought it was something, and when I saw it on video, that's not even close, man. And I gotta keep working.
Yeah, and that's where like I think it's the good and the bad of that. Where it's like you wanna have respect for what you do. You want to be able to have people be able to say, "Hey, I'm doing really good. I'm being able to do it." But if you can't go back and like look at yourself and be like, oh, I got to do this better. Oh, I've got to try this harder. I can definitely say my problem is like seeing that I had this set up. I felt like I got set up to fail fairly early, kind of by myself, but also by others. And it's taken a while to kind of roll this back with myself, where it's like, yeah, you're not the best. There's a You're always gonna be working on becoming better. You can't just sit there and let it eat at you. You've got to work at it. I can think of times in my life where if I had just had more of that attitude and less of like, I need to be instructor man. I need to be the guy who's going to be the one who da 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 da. Because other people were saying that to me, and probably way, way, way too early. And but part of that's always self-imposed too. I might have been in a much better or at least different place now. So I totally echo that from a lived experience, as it were.
Yeah, you can't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
You really can't. You're always going to be a student on something. You're going to suck at something. And either you put the work in and unsuck a little bit, because you can't be perfect in everything that you do. But you can always strive for that perfection. And I think that's something we can always strive for, is some sort of perfection. But if you're always striving for perfection and you're always trying to put the work in, I think at your end result, your sum total of your training, you're gonna come out at least above average. You know what I mean? And you're gonna show to the world, at least to a bunch of people who are below average or who don't put the work in, like that guy's putting in a lot of work. The guy looks pretty darn good, but to you, I mean, as a person who's always critical of yourself, you're like, I still got more to do.
Yeah.
I still got to do something. And then and I'm at that point now where I'm at that aging body level where I'm like, I'm in the mid 40s now, or getting close to it. And it's like things don't work as they used to, and my stamina isn't as it used to. And there's a certain my fight style and the way I used to train and what I train now has altered a little bit. And I'm hoping I can get a student base where they can get me where I'm at now, because I'm on the decline, unfortunately. And I mean, I can be honest in that, and so I'm on the decline. And if I can get somebody who gets me now or within the next few years, and they can learn from me, by the time I'm at that point where I can't fight anymore, which is probably the mid 50s or late or at the 60s, I've transmitted enough of the information that I've learned, and have interacted with them in a fighting in a full contact environment with enough where they can transmit that to somebody else, and they can be proficient. They can be the person who can take the torch and move on.
And the other thing about that is, even if you hit 60 and like, probably don't want to get knocked in the face by a 20-year-old who's got been
Yeah, I mean, you work on different things. I mean, I used to be like that switch changer. I can do orthodox southpaw, orthodox southpaw. I go back and forth within the in like some sort of fighting environment. Now I'm more straight orthodox for the most part. I'm not switching my feet, switching my hands, but I'm gaining I'm gaming more on techniques that have a higher hit percentage now versus me being more active, because I can't be as active as I was before. And that's just how it is. I mean, the body can't do that anymore. The stamina is not there. I can run a lot, I can do a lot of things, but the body doesn't produce enough testosterone and and
got to get that horse injector in there. We got to.
it's just like the muscles and the stuff, they get fatigued faster. And I'm still pretty tough, but I've gotta change the way I approach things. And I mean, that's what you got to do as you get older. I mean, Oyata. I mean, you look at our systems master, and in his younger years, he was the Bogu Kumite champion. He was Nakamura's enforcer. As he got older, as he got injuries and stuff like that, he's changed the way he's done things. Some things more technical than others. But we have to, if we want to be as good as our master, we have to do the things our master did, right? In my opinion, you have to be the fighter. You have to be the guy who gets involved in a lot of things, a lot of physical stuff, and then understand what works for you. And then as you get older, try to transmit that information before you get too old.
Well, I think the problem, especially with that particular example, is that a lot of people thought I can take this end stuff and just use that, as opposed to
Yeah,
I
they
got to
were,
do the stuff to do the work to actually get to the end,
yeah,
and or
you
to
gotta
like
put in
actually
that.
get there. And a lot of people are like taking the end stuff or the pretty stuff that like looks good, but they're not like there tends to be nothing behind a lot of that stuff, and that's not just to knock on those people. It is also like a lot of that's where I think a lot of karate ends up going anyway.
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
Not
Sailor.
everyone, not everyone, and not all places,
No,
but
no,
like
not no. That's not everyone, and I know a lot of people you've had on your podcast are putting in the work and are definitely they know how to apply these techniques in some sort of realistic manner. But there's others that that want to take the end result of Oyata. See, Oyata got the way he got based on experience, and there's a lot of experience that he had to go through to get to where he was at.
and some stuff we're like yeah, survive World War II. That's just like okay,
Survive World War II,
that's
not die in a
not dying.
kamikaze
Yeah,
attack.
yeah, that's the thing. Like survive like post-war Okinawa. Like
It's ridiculous.
especially like also being on the wealthy side of things.
Yeah,
Like
he was lucky.
that's what I mean. Like uh, a lot of people aren't going to be able to have those experiences and get there. So it's a matter of like, okay, can have this traumatic life experience that only happens like God forbid ever something like that ever happens again.
Yeah,
Or God forbid you get into something like that. The alternative is getting in the gym and working and like getting through applying those into situations where in a kind of a safer environment, but still being able to kind of like boil it down to its bare essentials, rather than like I don't know, live in like a terrible neighborhood and then like get mugged and then like or something
that's
like
true.
that.
Yeah, I can never. You can never recreate your instructor's experiences,
Yeah,
like experience for experience. You can never do that. But what you can do is you can try to walk in a similar like path. So they're gonna go through stages in life where they can do stuff and where they can't do stuff. And if you can at least try to do the things that they did, Oyata put on the gear and fought full contact, and Hanshi Albert Giraldi when he was there in Okinawa, what they did was Hanshi Jim Logue, when they were in Okinawa, they fought every class with Seiwa Yada. Not either with him or with students. They were fighting every class. They would do kata, and at the end, put on the gear, Bogu Kumite. So what I wanted to
was that
do
necessarily the best way to do it?
was that's what they did.
Right?
You
Like
know,
so, because that's I guess the kind of like orbit of what we're talking about, right? The
yeah,
what, but were compared to what you were doing with your guys like 6 months ago or whatever, or about a year ago.
yeah. It wasn't Bogu Kumite. It was like it was a transition into bag work, 2-man drills, and eventually getting into some sort of light sparring, and then into heavy sparring. But Oyata did things his way, and then we can modify it and maybe make it a little different. But there's got to be some sort of full contact element, in my opinion, early on. That's what Oyata was doing, right? It was full contact early on. You come in, you fight me. That's it. So if we can't keep doing that type of thing, we're not walking in a similar in a similar path as what our instructors did.
Well,
So
and
go on,
you
sorry.
go.
No, and so what I'm doing is I want to give my students or anybody who trains with me something that I wish I had done with me when I first started out. So if you come with me, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, my system is a fighting system. So you're going to fight. So you're going to learn how to fight. I'm not going to put the gear on and punch you in the face on the first class, but you're going to get to a level where you're going to fight eventually. So you're going to learn the kata, which is the blueprint, and you're going to learn, the bogu kumite or the fighting methods, and then we'll get into tuite and kyusho jutsu and Atame Jitsu and all the stuff that, Seiyota has transmitted to us. It's all going to be connected, but it's going to be connected from day one, not after you learn certain kata and after you learn certain two drill. We're going to do it right off the bat eventually. And then you're going to connect it to some sort of full contact environment stuff so that when stuff really happens and you have to defend your life, this isn't something that's unusual to you. You've dealt with the chaos.
Yeah.
You've seen chaos. You failed in chaos because you're going to fail in chaos. I mean, my students failed in chaos. I failed in chaos, and I continue to fail in chaos. It's just how it is. But you fail in the dojo. So when real life happens, it's not something that's unusual to you. It's like, I've been it before. Yeah, I'm a little more adrenalized. Yeah, I'm a little more scared. Yeah, I'm a little more, maybe there's more people around and that I got to deal with different things, but it's not something that just appeared out of nowhere and I'm like, oh shit, I got to figure this out. It's like, I've kind of been here kind of before. It's not exactly what I've been through, but I've been kind of through this thing. And I've had to defend myself in real life. And luckily, I've put myself into certain positions where, this isn't unusual to me, although it was never happens, tit for tat. And you're not going to be dealing with players that you thought you'd be dealing with. I've had to defend myself against family members. You ever have to fight somebody you've known and loved your entire life?
No fun.
It's weird. It's messed up. And you hold back a lot more than you think you do. It took a lot for me to actually punch somebody in the face that I know and love my entire life. And if I hadn't held back, I think I would have been better off. But because you're dealing with somebody you love and you're dealing with somebody you've known your entire life, if they could have hurt me a lot more. I could have been hurt and maybe even disabled.
Because emotions are running higher.
Emotions are running high, and I hesitated big time. I've also dealt with somebody I didn't know, and I pounded on them like immediately. So it's like, it's weird. So I mean, there's a lot of things that are involved in real fighting that you can't put into training. So,
and I think to more of your point on like where we come from, where I think the disconnect lied is where all those demonstrations of like the advanced secrets of the kata and all that stuff were, I think, initially the intention of hands-on drills.
Yeah.
But became, look at the fancy thing. And where you're going down, and I think I'm going down that path, and I think other people are who want to make it more practical go down is, all right, here's the fancy thing, here's the full contact, here's the contact that needs to happen. There's kind of a range in which you can make that work.
Yes.
Right? You can go to the full bogu. You can go as soft as like Tai Chi style sticky hands.
Yeah, you could. I mean, yeah, you could do some. No, not super like Tai Chi stuff. I can't do that anymore.
What do you mean you can't? What are you too old to do Tai Chi stuff?
No, I just can't, man. I'm
sticky hands. The kakie is actually okay. I think the kakie, like kakie.
I can get behind that. I mean, a little bit. I mean, I get that. I'm personal preference. I like a lot more contact. This is me.
But I think if you're trying to get people on board who might not, and this is where, and this is more to your point of like you want fighters, right?
I do.
But at the same time, you have to realize that, and like this is why the original school I was with cut sparring altogether, was they were losing people.
You do lose people.
Yeah, you lose people, but it's like from a commercial perspective. And I'm not saying this is good. I'm saying this is what happened.
It's exactly what happens.
And it's what happens with a lot of people. I know you kind of had to deal with that a little bit when you were helping with the commercial side of it. But like that's like why it ended in where I was. And that wasn't even what you would consider full contact. That was just like light sparring or medium contact sparring at best, not even face contact. But it's like how do you get like suburbanites to get into that, and like start them out pushing hands, start them out touching at least, or at least
Mhm.
doing something like that, where they're used to at least body contact and how the body moves
Yeah.
to a degree. If you're doing it correctly, that's on the same range that can range you up to full contact fighting. Doing that incorrectly and making it like completely separate and stuff like that, it's never going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
So that's what I would say to that degree. But even though I know you would be allergic to something like that a little bit.
Allergic. No, I mean, I don't hate it. I understand why people do it. It's just not my bag.
Totally, totally. I think we've kicked that around quite a bit, my friend.
Yeah, I think so
Um,
too.
cool, cool. What do you think you're getting into training this week?
Uh, hmm. So next week is bag week or Bogu Kumite drill week. Um, I'm not particularly liking my left side kick. I might work on that a lot more. Uh, and my left moving side kick. So, and I haven't done moving side kicks too much lately. Um, I've been actually working a lot more roundhouses the past maybe 2 months, only
My
because I find that to be a little more higher percentage hit ratio. Um, but I think my right side kick is, even today when I was kind of warming up, I was like, oh, this right side kick is pretty solid. My left, I'm like,
nothing's happening.
my,
Nothing's coming out.
yeah, it just seems weird. I mean, my left roundhouse kick is solid. My right roundhouse kick is not as solid as my left. It's weird, but I think my left side kicks and moving side kicks, I'm gonna work a lot this week coming up, especially on the bag, trying to get more power into it. Um, and maybe a lot more footwork drills. I haven't done that in a while. But the only reason why I haven't done a lot of that, I mean, it's maybe weather related. My mats, when it gets cold, I slip a little bit more.
No,
So it's kind of hard to kind of plant
that's
and
training though. That's training. You have to
it
learn
is.
learn to deal with it in a slippery situation.
If you're not falling, you're not trying hard enough.
There you
but
go.
but I got to get past that. I got to kind of push myself a little bit. So I'm going to work a lot more footwork drills and side steps, lateral movements, and counters. I guess that would be all. So this week will be left side kicks and counters and footwork.
Definitely. I mean, it sounds good to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I've looked into getting so where I live now. I got these like I showed you this when I went on a little mission last week, but I got this because I only have access to a gym that's like 30 minutes away, and it's a very much of like community center type. Like, yeah, we have a room and we have a couple of like little weight machines and some treadmills that may or may not work. Um, Probably sure they work, but the
it
no.
would your mic picked up a little bit.
Okay,
It's
good.
good. It's good now, but you got slight feedback when you moved it a little bit.
Okay, so okay, well, we're good. Um, Probably not going to edit that out. Whatever. Um, we got alcohol in us. We don't have to edit. But yeah, what I'm gonna do is because I've got a garage I can work out of.
Mhm.
So my biggest problem was I was like, ah man, it's concrete. It's killing my knees. Just get mats. But I was like, oh no, I can't afford mats. Now there's mats that are out there that are fairly okay in terms of pricing,
Yeah.
and so I got like these like cheap $10 mats, and I was like, oh, and I like got up and I did like a leg day because my shoulder is still a little like meh from doing snow shoveling,
Yeah.
and so I did like a leg day, and I was like, yeah, my legs hurt, but it's like it's not like my knees. So I think yeah, no, we're still gonna do. We're just gonna convert a storage room into a dojo and just hope
Good.
nobody notices. Uh,
Or maybe you get some students.
we'll see. The thing is, there is a thing is, if I was able to say I could open a karate class, I'd probably have full access to a gym right down the street.
Okay.
But until I do that, I got to have some place for me to train.
Yep.
So I may, in fact, end up getting another version of the bag that I used to have.
Hmm.
So
Oh, like the
yeah, the one
okay.
that always fell down, and so I found out
I
why.
warned you it was gonna fall down. I
But
mean,
I
you're
found out why. So what's funny is my buddy
okay.
Hide helps me out moving from out of that old place, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Yeah,
The
it's
one
got
you give the
suction
bag
pads."
to?
Hmm?
The one you give the bag to?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so he was like, "Oh, it's got suction cups on the bottom." I'm like, "Yeah, nothing happens." Oh, it's because that's on tatami. If you put it on like wood or concrete, they'll stick. And so he sends me this video of him just like beating the crap out of it, and it's not falling down at all. He's like doing
Really?
side kicks and front kicks and like punches and stuff. It's fine.
Wow.
So it's like, wow, I guess had it on the wrong surface the entire time.
Oh, all right. So
So if I can get,
you gonna just stick on that mats that you got?
or just like put it on concrete.
We'll stick on concrete.
We'll see. Well,
Well,
maybe
fucking
not. I don't know.
no,
Wood,
those
suction
weight
cups
master
on
bags.
concrete, suction cups on wood.
Well, wood will work, but I don't know the wave master bags always knock down too or something.
Oh, our sidekick, our styles sidekicks are too strong. No, for any bag to resist.
All right, strong karate.
That's number one.
Hey, number one karate.
Number one karate, not us. Not us.
Yeah, we suck.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, I think we've kicked around a lot with the alcohol and the karate.
All
So,
right, that's good.
Raul, thanks for doing this, man. Like, thanks
Well,
for
thanks for having me on again.
both the. Hey, don't be a stranger. You, I've name checked you a couple times on this, but I
No,
obviously.
I'm not. No, be honest. So everyone's listening. I'm not a stranger. John and I talk weekly.
Oh no, weekly. It's almost like it's we're basically have to tell your wife, hey, sorry, I bought. Well, that's not true because we did come and do the 100 kata day with me. So I mean,
We did.
that's not entirely
Yeah.
untrue.
Yeah, but you and I, we're always conversing with each other, either daily or weekly.
Yeah,
We've always been very friendly with each other. We've reconnected, obviously, recently. I guess the past few years ago, since you moved to Japan. But and I've always enjoyed talking with you. I've always enjoyed being around you. So it was nice to reconnect with you, and to be on your podcast during the pandemic, and we just continue just kind of being a friend with you.
yeah, definitely. And like, it's good to have like I don't know. It's hard to find good karate friends who you can relate to pretty well. And despite the fact we have, maybe 10 years between us and like some differences, I
Yeah.
this is a friendship I can't be more thankful for. So
And I'm generally an asshole, so you can put up
it's all right.
with
Uh, to quote Team America, sometimes you need an asshole. Um,
or a dick. We're not gonna
sometime
get a joint. Stop it, stop it. I'm not gonna get a joint.
it's all right. We've already been canceled 3 times already.
Pretty
All
much.
right, Raul, thank you for joining me
No
again.
problem.
Toast to that. And everyone, thank you for listening to this very inebriated podcast. Be safe, be well, and keep on training.
Come by.
Kampai.